Hello and welcome to the Ciao Bella Midnight Spell mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. All of the products that are available on the Scrap and Create website are linked in the description box below, so you can click on those links, purchase those products to follow along. Let's get started. In today's tutorial, we are going to begin decorating our cover for our album. I have one piece of my white cardstock cut to 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. I've already scored this at 1/2 inch on the 6 3/4 inch side on the right hand side, and then I've used my scissors to miter the ends on that 1/2 inch tab. Now I'm just going to fold back on my score line and burnish my fold. Now before I place my piece on my cover, I do need to put my ribbon closure on. I've decided to use my silver ribbon and I've cut 2 pieces to about 11 inches. If you like really long bows, then you might want to cut your pieces a little bit longer than that. I have marked here on the edge of my front cover where the center is, and I'm just going to place the edge of the ribbon right there in my adhesive. I've also marked on my back cover, and I'm going to do the same thing for my back cover, placing my second piece of ribbon right there in the center in my adhesive. I'm going to adhere my flap over here on the right side of the front cover, but I'm not going to make it go right to the edge, so I'm just going to bring it about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my adhesive to my 1/2 inch tab section on my flap. And now I'm going to place this down. I'm just going to eye it. If you want this to be perfect, then I would say you will want to go ahead and measure it and place marks on your cover. I'm going to burnish this down using my bone folder. And the top and bottom edge should be straight with your cover. I've cut about a 2-inch piece of my silver ribbon. I'm going to use this as a pull tab. I've marked the center here on my front cover on the edge. And I'm just going to place the end of my ribbon there. And then I'm going to loop it around and adhere the second part of the ribbon end to the back side. From my 8x8 papers, I am using this piece. I've cut this to 6 inches by 8 inches. This piece I'm going to place right here on the front of the flap, covering the end of my ribbon. From this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut the bottom piece here, and this measures 8 inches by 2 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to turn this way and place this here in my spine section. From this 12 by 12 paper, measuring down from the bottom, you want to cut the top part to 8 1/2 by 12. Then I've cut this to 7 1/2 inches. Then I cut a 1/2 inch off the top. So this piece, when it's done, it should measure 7 1/2 by 8 inches for this portion here. We're not going to glue this down yet because we have to prepare it and get it ready. The rest of this piece here, this strip, I'm going to be placing here like this. But again, we need to get this piece ready, and we're going to add our eyelets for our corset binding across the spine. I've taken my centering ruler and marked 1/4 of an inch from the edge at 0, 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4. Then the same thing down, 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4. I've also come over here and I've measured 1/4 inch in. Same thing at 0, 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4, 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4. Then I'm going to be taking my crocodile and I'm using the larger eyelet, so I'm going to be using the larger hole. I've set my little piece here so that my hole is in the center of that mark that I made, and I can use the rest so that I know that my paper is sitting in there correctly. So once I get that in the right position, I'm just going to pierce that hole. And I'm going to do this for all of the holes on both of my pieces. After I have my holes ready to go, I'm going to place some white eyelets down in them, and I'm going to use my crocodile to set eyelets in all of the holes on both pieces. Now I'm not going to do this on camera, but I will come back once these are finished and show you the finished result. I have my eyelets on my pieces and now I'm going to start adhering them down, but I need to be careful that I don't adhere all of this so that it's not too hard to get the ribbon underneath. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add my adhesive here, but not here, and I will come back in with a fine tip glue bottle after I'm done with my ribbons and add some glue to the edges of my piece to glue those down after I've threaded my ribbons. So I'm just going right to the edge of those grommets, and then I'll add my adhesive here in the center. And now when I place this piece on, it will be adhered down up to those grommets, but then I should be able to fish my ribbon through those holes fairly easily. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other piece here, just adding my adhesive up to those grommets, but not between those grommets or the eyelets, and not on the edge past those eyelets. I have decided to use my white satiny see-through ribbon for this step. I did an estimate of this. I hope I cut enough. If not, then on the screen I will list the appropriate measurement for you, but I have cut this to 70 inches. And like I said, once I do this, if I know if it's the wrong amount, I will give you the right amount in text on the screen. Otherwise, you'll cut to 70 inches. I'm just looking for the center of my ribbon here, and I'm going to crease it. And then I'm actually also, to make this easy on myself, I'm going to mark this on both sides with my pencil. That way I can see it, because I'm going to need to have this be in the center of my spine piece to make this even. I'm going to take the end of my ribbon on one side and I'm going to go down through the first eyelet at the bottom. I'm going to pull that until the mark I made is centered on my spine. And just to make this easier on myself, I have a piece of washi tape. I am going to just tape that down so that hopefully it does not move as I do the rest of this. I'm going to take that end and come across the spine and up through that second eyelet. And I'm going to use my hook Now you want to be careful when you do this. Like I pulled this a little bit too much, or it might have happened when I was putting my eyelets in, but I did rip that paper, so I don't want to rip that off. I will eventually have this glued down and it won't be a problem, but I don't want to pull it out now. So I'm just going to very carefully thread this through here, going up every other one. Then we're going to start on the other side doing the same thing, starting with this bottom one and looping it through, if I can get it to go through. And then I'm going to go up each of these to the top. Now you need to be really careful when you do this next step. I actually pulled one of my grommets out, so I will have to use a mixed media glue to glue it back down. But you need to have a little bit of extra room in here, so don't make this too tight. We need to bend this into that book shape. And again, mine is going to come out, so I'm just going to hold this one in place. And now we have our ribbons are tight around our spine, so we want to make sure that it will bend to close. And then I'm gonna stand up to do this step. If I can get my hands in here to do it. You can place this book between your legs. It'd probably be much easier to hold it from sliding. But you're going to tie this first in a knot and then tie this in a bow. And I'll come back and retie my bow later to make it prettier. But now when our spine is closed, this is what it will look like. It'll be tight across there. You don't want it to be too tight because you don't want your eyelet to pull out and rip your paper like mine did. But when it is open, it will have some room in here. Now I did go ahead and add my adhesive in here between these pages, or between these eyelets on the page to hold everything down. But I want you to get your ribbons correct and then go in and adhere your papers down. So I did mine first and I should have done it second. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this with some mixed media gel to hold this down, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up the cover. We are going to start decorating the inside underneath the flap. I did go ahead and place my coordinating magnets. So I placed one here and then I put a second one on top and closed this to place my magnets correctly. This piece is from the Fussy cut sheets, and I've cut this to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is going to act as a photo mat, and I'm going to be placing this here in the center. From the leftover piece from the, I believe this was the 12 by 12 paper, it looked like this. I've cut 2 pieces, and these measure 5 1/2 by 1 3/4. So I'm going to place one here and one down here. And I'm going to leave a small space between this piece and this one. It's going to be right next to my score line here, and there will be a small white border. And then there'll be a small border of white between the flower strips and that photo mat. Coming over here to the flap, I am using another one of the cut apart sheets. This one is cut to 4 1/4 by 6 inches. And I'm going to be placing this one here. From this 12 by 12 paper, I'm using the gold side, and I've cut 2 pieces to 4 1/4 by 1 inch. I'm going to place one up here at the top and one down here at the bottom below the area for the photo mat. Now from this 8 by 8 paper, I'm going to be using this piece for one of my front flaps, but I had this leftover piece. So you haven't cut this piece yet. So you're going to cut a piece that measures 1 3/4 inch by 8 inches. This is from the right hand side. So 1 3/4 by 8 inches. This piece is going to go here on the end, covering the magnet. There will be a small border around all of those pieces, and they will fit just past that score line, so there will also be a small border between all of those papers. Now I may come back in here later and add some fussy cut pieces as embellishments, but for now I'm going to leave the inside like this. Now we're going to come here to the front cover and add some flowers and embellishments. The first thing that I did was take 2 of my charms from the pack from Scrapping Crate, and I've just tied them on the ends of my ribbon here so they will dangle down on the spine. Now I've opened up my 2 packages of flowers. I've gotten this one from the white flower set and these 2 from the blue. I'm going to take my larger white flower and place it up here. And then I'm going to take my blue flowers and place them on either side of my white flower here like this and make a cluster. And I'm just going to be using my tacky glue to glue these ones on. Now while I'm waiting for those to dry, I did cut 2 pieces of my lace trim, and I'm going to place 1 piece down this side here and 1 piece down this side here. So you want to cut your pieces, if you're doing lace, you want to cut them the same exact size as your cover, so 8 1/4 inches. Now, anytime I'm gluing fabric or lace, I do like to use Fabri-Tac, so that's what I will be using to glue my lace trim on. I'm going to add a line of glue right at the edge of that decorative paper where that white border and the decorative paper meet. That's where I'm going to adhere my trim. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side, except for I want to make sure that I don't get the glue on my flowers, so I'm just going to run my adhesive right up that paper edge. In the packet of charms from Scrap and Create, I do have these little small corner pieces. I'm just using E6000 to put these on my front cover. If you don't have E6000, you can use any kind of mixed media embellishment adhesive, will work fine here. But regular glues don't tend to be a good way to adhere these down. At least I found that they tend to come off if I use my regular tacky glue. So make sure that you use a strong adhesive when you're adhering these down. And we're just going to put the 2 small ones on these 2 front corners. I've added a little tiny ribbon tail to my clock charm, and I'm going to place my clock charm in here in my flowers. So I'm just going to apply some of my E6000 to this bottom section here. And then excuse my head while I put some of this adhesive on that flower. And I'm just going to place that there. Then I've looped some ribbon through the shoe charm, and I'm going to adhere this to my little pull tab. If you've followed my albums, you know I like to add charms on the ends of my pull tabs. So we're going to add this one here. I'm going to leave all this to dry, then we'll come back and see if I'm going to add any type of pearls or gems. I did decide to go ahead and add some of my little teeny tiny pearls down here on her midsection as a belt. I added 3 as a pearl necklace, and I had 4 put in her hair on her hairband to make it look like it is a pearl headband. So I'm going to go ahead and let all of this dry, and that is it for this tutorial. If you are just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to check out the description box below for all of the links to the Ciao Bella Magic Spell collection, as well as the embellishments that I am using. So if you want to follow along with the tutorial, you can click on those products, purchase them, and follow along. I'll see you in the next tutorial.